Good evening, everyone. I'm Jane Decknatel, the director of the Broad Stage, here to welcome you to the most amazing evening, as we all know. I have just a couple of things I'd like to say. You may think it's odd I'm holding a microphone and a huge silver statue, but last night we were awarded the Ovation Award for the Best Presented Theater in Los Angeles. So I wanted to share that with you because we're all incredibly proud of ourselves and very excited, and hope you will also come and see theatre here. What you're about to enjoy and witness tonight started with a conversation some time ago when I was in Eli Broad's office. And he said to me, "Have you ever considered visual art, Jane?" And we had a long conversation about where visual art and performing arts intersect. And as most people here know, that is becoming a reality in both worlds. So I want to say a personal thanks to the Broads, to Edie, and to Eli. For their incredible support of us, of the Broad Stage, and certainly for me personally. Thank you both. I'm going to hand you over to William Turner, another old friend, and he will give you the rest of the evening. Enjoy.
Thank you, Jane. And congratulations again on your Ovation Award. That's very exciting. I understand, Jane, it was for your production of 1984. I can only imagine what next year will be. The Manchurian Candidate, I hope not. My name is William Turner, and I'm your executive producer for tonight. And it's a real honor to be here with you in this wonderful stage. I see so many old friends and faces. The energy is fantastic. The guys backstage are very excited that they're finally getting some recognition. But first I want to begin by thanking Eli and Edie Broad, not just for this wonderful venue that you've brought to Santa Monica, but for everything you've done for Los Angeles in so many ways. Your contribution to the arts has been extraordinary. You know, when you look at Los Angeles today, we're really thriving as a city. We're one of the most influential, dynamic, and creative cities in the world. And the contributions you both have made to the arts and culture of this town are incalculable. This town would not be the town it is without the two of you. So please join me in really thanking and for all you've done and continue to do. So tonight's talk begins a series of talks at the Broad Stage, as Jane mentioned, to really foster a dialogue with some of the most amazing talent that we have in Los Angeles in the visual arts. And I think when you see the appetite that's here tonight to really hear the stories and histories of our artists, I think it's a fantastic idea. And I'm so glad that Sotheby's Institute of Art at Claremont Graduate University stepped up to really co-sponsor this series. Out of that sponsorship, it also evolved a very interesting partnership between the Broad Stage and Sotheby's Institute of Art, where students at Sotheby's can participate in programs here at the Broad Stage and really explore careers in the arts with a hands-on approach. So I applaud that. An evening like tonight does not happen without the efforts of a lot of people, and I want to thank everyone who helped make this happen. But in particular of note, I want to thank my good friend, unstoppable force of nature, director of the Broad Stage, and Ovation Award winner, Jane Decknatel. Jane, you and your staff have been fantastic to work with, and this stage is humming along. Anyone who has only come here for the first time, their programming is amazing, and I can't believe they fit this in, but I'm so glad that it worked out. I also want to thank the Sotheby's Institute of Art and their vision for jumping in full force in sponsoring this series, and that goes to their terrific director, Jonathan Neal, and to Tori Benoit. Jonathan, Tori, thank you so much. To really pull this off, though, I have to also thank Lynn Winter and her incredible PR team. They never cease to amaze, and they really make this the success it is and brought the magic to this event. Thank you so much. The photographs that you saw as you came in, these wonderful recent photographs of the artist, and some of the images that were on the screen are thanks to Karen Levin, and please give her a hand. Most importantly, I want to thank the artists. I want to thank Larry Bell, Billy Al Bankston, Ed Ruscha, and Ed Moses for taking time from their busy work schedules and exhibition schedules to join us tonight. And when I say busy, these guys are working nonstop all the time, and it's amazing to see after 50 to 60 years of steady production and exhibition history that they're still going at it strong. So thank you, guys. Unfortunately, Robert Irwin is not able to make it tonight. He had an unexpected scheduling conflict, but he sends his best regards and well wishes for this evening's event. Okay, so tonight we have, I think, a sense of how special this evening is. We've got a packed house. The tickets were hotter to get than Hamilton, and this is not a musical. Although when I told them that it's a packed house, they did start singing a little bit, just in case. These guys came on the scene before LA really had an art scene, and they, along with some of the people in this audience tonight, I see Irving Blum here, Frank Gehry, and some other artists that go back pretty much to the dawn of their careers. They really made the scene. It's hard to imagine today what LA was like at that period. Today we have over 200 plus galleries in Los Angeles. We have the best art schools in the world, and we have over 20 world-class museums. Among them, LACMA, MoCA, the Hammer, 2 Gettys, and the newest jewel to the crown, the Broad, downtown. Back then, there was just one museum. It was the LA County Museum, and it shared space with the Museum of Natural History, downtown. The highlights of their collection, the Picassos, the Pollocks, were deemed too controversial in that conservative climate, and so they stayed mostly in the racks. So you didn't get to see them. So there were very few galleries, very few artists, and almost no collectors when they started. It is now my pleasure to introduce the moderator for tonight to corral these guys and keep them in line and keep their stories moving and interesting. And Irving, if they stray too far, let them know. One of my favorite art historians, art critics, and authors who has known all of these artists, has written books. Rebels in Paradise is on the time in the 60s in Los Angeles. So it's my honor to introduce our moderator for tonight, Hunter Droho, Yoska Philp, and LA legends Larry Bell, Billy Al Bankston, Ed Moses, and Ed Ruscha. Come on out, guys.
That's how I know who I am.
Yeah, there you go. Let's say hi to them.
Very church-like, huh? It's church-like.
That's because you're the high priests. You're the high priest of this. That's very nice. You haven't done anything yet.
Hunter, take it away. Have fun, guys.
Thank you all for coming. I thank Bill and Lynn and Eli and Edie, and the shout out to all the people in the audience who were part of this scene. And we were backstage. We thought, well, we really don't have anything else to say. You saw the movie, but I'm sure we'll have something. And I'm going to start with one of the younger of this group, the young Ed Ruscha here on my left.
Younger. He's younger.
Younger,
He's
Larry.
Younger.
But it is
start
true.
with him.
He's a child, I know. You're the elder one. But I wanted to start right what it was like for you, because you're good at talking about this. 1956, you're in your 1950 black Ford with Mason Williams. You're driving out here to go to school in Los Angeles. Can you just do a quick recap of what you're feeling, what it was like for you to come to Los Angeles as a
40 Ford, wasn't it?
as a young Oklahoman?
Yeah, so I came from the dead center of Oklahoma, and it felt like a scratchy black and white movie. And so coming to California was a deal. And I thought I wanted to come and go to Art Center School so I could learn how to be a sign painter. And I applied, but I got stopped quickly because the quota was filled. And so there was another school I could go to called Chenard. And that's where I started. And but then I found out that Art Center School had a dress code. There were you couldn't have any affectations of beatnik or wear sandals or wear a beret or no facial hair, all of that. And so I ended up at a school where all of those things were welcome. As a matter of fact, it was sort of compulsory. That's how I got Forward Motion.
Forward Motion, I like that description. And you're there, and at that time, there were some interesting teachers there.
I did. I had Emerson Wolfer, and I had Robert Irwin, who taught watercolor class, and he made us prepare take a big slab of wood and put 1,000 pieces of paper tape down on top of itself, and then you put a piece of paper on top of that, watercolor paper, and then you tape that down, and then you wet it and let it dry like a drum head, and then you're staring at this thing, and it scares the pants off of you because you don't know where to begin on this surface. Imagine that if you spend all this time preparing to begin to go. Start to begin to get to go. But anyway, Irwin was a great talker, and it was completely worthwhile. Got a lot from him.
And we're sorry he's not here tonight because the other student he had was Larry, who was who also came to Chenard and had a sort of similar experience. But now you came from over the hill. You came from the valley.
Yep.
Not as long a drive.
No, but my parents were worried about me driving, so they paid for a room by the school.
Oh yeah, you stayed in a really interesting place. You want to tell me about that?
What?
You stayed in the Shalimar.
The Shalimar d'India, right.
That was owned by Charlie Chaplin, right? Wasn't it?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know who owned it.
Groucho.
Groucho. Tell me about your experience with Robert Irwin.
Well, I think we might have been in the same watercolor class. I found him a very charismatic guy, and I'd never really met anybody like him. I'm sorry he's not here tonight. I spoke earlier to him. He sends his regards to everybody and apologizes for not being here, except that he's got a bad back. And tomorrow he goes through some kind of procedure, treatment on his back, which he hopes is going to make him a lot better. So,
Well, we miss him because he was a huge influence and a good friend to everyone on this stage.
Yeah,
you
he
know?
was a good guy. He was a good
And
guy.
what do you think you got the most from him in your time at Chenard?
Well, I think Bob's strength really was in conveying a sense of how one trusts themselves, and I suspect that rubbed off pretty good. You know, I mean, finally, if you don't trust yourself, you can't do very much, and that's. I'd have to say trust was the thing that I got more than anything out of him.
Well, that's a good message. And he was an influential teacher there. And the other influential teacher was Billy Al over there, who had the experience of being kicked out of so many art schools. But by the time he was teaching, he really knew what he was talking about.
I was kicked out
You were.
of everything
So you came out here from Dodge City
with my parents.
with your parents, but then you were here.
No, I was born in Dodge City. I
How
lived
square.
in Buckland.
You came out here with your folks?
Yeah.
He tried to leave them behind, but
No. That's a defense industry.
well, you went to Manual Arts, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Which is also where Jackson Pollock went to school.
I didn't know that when I was there. And I could see why he would go there, because that's about the only school there was that and Polytechnic. And there were manual arts in Manual Arts, which was good. As a matter of fact, it was excellent. They had a pot shop, they had a welding shop, they had a woodworking shop, they had watercolor studios, they had nude models, and you never want to see those nude models. And drawing and painting and da-da-da-da-da, and I learned absolutely nothing.
But you learned that you were going to be an artist.
No, that came by accident.
But by the time these young people come to Los Angeles, you're a little bit on your way.
That's right.
You've already transitioned, gone into ceramics with Peter Volkos at what's now Otis, but then was the LA County Art Institute.
Well, he was great. He was absolutely amazing, a real force. And without Pete, I don't think anybody would be anything. You know, he was the best. He didn't teach, he did his work, and you tried to be like him.
Peter Volkos.
Yeah, and you couldn't be like him. He was way too good. And we appreciated it, and he also took us to lunch.
He did what? He also did what?
He took us to lunch.
He took you to lunch.
No, took us to lunch.
You paid
Yes.
for your lunch.
Yes.
Well, that's a good quality in a teacher.
It's a great quality, and and if he got mad at you, he locked you in the kill. And it's very lonely in the kill.
Let me out! Let me out! You didn't get locked in there with Ken Price, though.
No, Kenny was always good. And Kenny came from SC, so he was on the tail end of that, and he was very advanced by the time he got there. He was a great ceramicist, and he proved that. I'm sorry he's not here, and a lot of other people that should be here that aren't here.
We have lost a lot of people.
It's inconsiderate of them to take off. Pissed me off.
We agree with that. And so you've gone to Manual Arts, and you went to quite a few art schools in Los Angeles, if I remember. I think you went to
not too many. I went to
USC.
No, I lasted one day at USC. I went on an athletic scholarship, and I realized I was not going to be an athletic supporter. And then I dropped out and went to work in display at Desmond's. And that was a good education. And then I went to City College. Actually, I think I went to Arts and Crafts next because I wanted to get out of town. And I did, and that was sort of fun. I studied with what would have been considered at that time a serious artist, which had been Dick Deepcorn. And he sort of painted us a different color. And then I came back to California because Pete said I could come back. Mm-hmm. So I was with Pete, and that was fantastic. And then I couldn't do that any longer. And who knows why I became a painter. Because it was easier in ceramics, and we didn't have hemorrhoids.
And you said you became a painter because Pete Volkos thought that painting was the highest art.
Well,
even though he was a potter, or he was not a potter, he was a ceramic sculptor.
You got, at that time, and I think it's still the case, you get more money for a painting than you do for a pot.
Yeah, you get more money for a painting than you would for ceramic sculpture.
And you don't get hemorrhoids.
And you didn't get hemorrhoids. Now, around that time, in the late 50s, we have Ed Moses, who's almost got the same sort of educational career. You came from Long Beach. You did a
Long Beach City College, right. Mm-hmm. And I thought that at that time, in order to go to a college, you'd go to a junior college. And then you could advance on to a college, which was UCLA, which was a terrible conclusion to all that. But I met Craig Kaufman there, and he was sort of a natural-born genius of an artist. He'd just whine all the time, look at things and say, that guy's got to be kidding. He was talking to the faculty members who were lecturing, and he thought it was a joke, and it was.
Well, you also met Walter Hopps there.
I met Walter Hopps, called Chico, through Craig Kaufman, and he was going to start this gallery named Ferris Gallery. And it was named after a guy that he and Jim Newman killed on the road.
Roadkill?
And his name was Ferris. So they titled the gallery after this guy that they killed.
And no one's been able to disprove this, by the way.
Right. No, there was a lot of interesting factors at that time.
So the first Ferris, you're the first Ferris, and the first Ferris is founded by Walter Hopps and Ed Kienholz.
Right.
And
called Chico.
Chico Hopps, that's right. And you're...
After he became a gentleman, he said he didn't want to be called Chico anymore. He would be called Walter from that time on.
I'll bet you didn't do that, though.
Pardon?
You didn't do that, though. You kept calling him Chico.
No, I agreed. If a guy wants to be called a different name, why not?
Well, the thing about Ferris is also in Ferris 1, the first iteration, don't you have your graduate painting show was at Ferris?
Yes, I did my graduate painting show at the Ferris Gallery, and they were less than thrilled about the faculty. And but I had one good teacher at UCLA, Bill Bryce was his name, who was a big fan of Rico Lebrun, who was sort of a joke to all of us. And he learned to draw around a volume that would be a human. And so that's what I did. But I didn't like it. I'd done a lot of drawings of little houses I lived in with a T-square and a vertical triangle, lining, keeping all the things aligned. They had to be aligned for some compulsive reason that I have no idea what it was.
Well,
I didn't want it to fall over, I guess.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about mechanical drawing.
Yeah, it is. It keeps you aligned. So I did a bunch of little houses like that, and they look sort of neat. And when I tried to get into UCLA, they said I couldn't draw because I had done these little houses like that with vertical, horizontal line patterning with graphite. I was compelled to put lines on and then take them off for reasons that are inexplicable.
But they come to work for part of your work later. That becomes a big part of your work.
Yeah, it was a way. Yeah, it was a way. I didn't know where I was going. I was just flopping around like another fool. When I was a little kid, my aunt and my mother didn't hear anything where I slept in this little kitchenette area. That's where the earthquake hit in '33. I remember my mother was coming to the table with Waldorf salad. And she said, "It's an earthquake." So she ran and turned all the burners off on the stove and grabbed me, and we went down this little hallway into a big bay window that faced this high school that all collapsed. All the bricks came falling down, and the earth was going up to meet it. It was sort of scary.
And I want to go from that. So you're showing at the Ferris Gallery. I want to stay there. And here we are in the late 50s, and Ferris Gallery is this unlikely success, I would say. It is
I would say it was a very unlikely success.
Yeah, there are no art collectors much in LA. There are galleries here, but what's interesting about Ferris is because it started by an artist. It started by Ed Kienholz with Walter Hopps. And then as it progresses in time, Kienholz wants to go back to making art, his own art, and so that's when Irving Blum steps in and starts what we loosely term Ferris 2. These are not official names. These are just what I'm saying because some people don't know there are like 2 iterations of Ferris in 2 locations. And they have sort of separate identities. But the one thing about Walter Hopps that sort of starts with, let's see. With Chico Hopps is that he's so enthusiastic, and he sort of and somehow acquires all of you one way or another. Not exactly, but over time. So you have a show there. I think Wallace Berman recommended you for your show.
Yeah, well. Irving Blum came into town from New York, and he walked in and saw the Ferris Gallery and talked to Chico, who interviewed him to be the director. And Irving said, first we got to get rid of about 30 people. There were all these funny guys that were in there with beards and babies and wives with babies sitting around nursing their babies.
That can put art collectors off, I've heard. You know? Yeah.
Right. Well, Irving got rid of all these guys, except he kept Wally Berman. And he kept me and et cetera here.
and Billy.
And Billy, yeah. Oh, Billy.
Billy,
He
you walked out
Mr.
in the
Unpredictable. He always said the reverse thing, whatever he was going to say about anything.
Well, you said you were going to be the greatest artist in the world or something.
That's before I knew there wasn't one.
You didn't think you were going to be it.
I didn't know the difference between objective and subjective. So how do you go from there? I didn't know a hell of a lot, as a matter of fact. I still don't, but
You're a great artist, Billy. You've done some amazing things. I remember when you did that Deno show, and he had the perversity when something wasn't working to make it worse.
you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Yeah, you were working on these metal things, and you spray painted various objects, chevrons and pineapples and whatever. They were really terrific things. And then he was working on these aluminum pieces and made beautiful paintings on them, but they would get crumpled or bent. And so he just took a hammer and hit a whole bunch of them and then spray painted the image over that. And he put them on a piece of wood surrounding the interior of the gallery. And he had candles down below, so the candlelight reflected on the Deno paintings. And it was an amazing show.
That's Ed's fantasy.
What's
It didn't
that?
work that way. That was 20 years later at Rico's.
Oh, was that? Well,
Yeah.
memories.
I wanted to be serious at one time, and then I realized it was a waste of time.
He's serious.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about airbrushing because, interestingly, all four of you had jobs, and those jobs actually contributed to the way your art emerged. Billy Al was riding motorcycles.
That was my living.
You're living, making money, racing motorcycles, and airbrush. And he learned how. You told him about. And you started using the airbrush technique used on motorcycles in your paintings.
Well, if I had the patience, I'd have done it the way the early Rolls-Royce people did it with lacquering brushes. But you get 60 or 70 coats of paint after you've rubbed them out. You're too tired to do any imaging, so spray gun worked a lot better. It was modern, worked better, and didn't waste as much paint. And
What was Oklahoma thinking about at those times?
Well, we're going to get to that. We're going to talk about that now because Ed, in a similar way, the thing you did to make money sometimes was graphic art.
Yeah, I had a job at a place called Sunset House, which was on South La Cienega, and I would work every year from around September through the end of November, and I was on this painting line where I would personalize people's names on gift items. And so I could live the rest of the year on what I made in those couple of months. And I just remember painting the name John John many times. It was the most popular name, John John, and named after John John Kennedy. So, and that dates me, doesn't it? I mean, that's like 63, 62, 63, yeah.
But weren't these also like Mr. and Mrs. toothbrush holders and really odd things?
Yes, yes.
Like what were some of the items you were personalizing? They were so odd.
There was a thing called the Ma and Pa Chopper Hopper, which was a little ceramic dish that you put, I don't know, water in, and you put your false teeth in there. And I would get a nickel a piece for those, and they would just sort of be fed to me with a piece of paper that had the name on it. And another one was a birdhouse for children, and I would get the roof. The roof had a little chimney on it and a little plastic bird, and on the other side of it, I would letter the kid's name. And I did 300 or 400 of those every day. So
So if you see
cut
those,
my chops. Yeah.
you see those things on eBay, you can have yourself a real early Ed Ruscha.
I wish I had one of those. Yeah.
And you were in the mirror, you were in the framing shop. You, Larry. So, not him, you.
I had a bunch of jobs, little jobs. The framing shop was out in Burbank, and a very nice guy ran the shop, and I was able to buy my paints at a wholesale, because he sold art supplies too, and so I bought my stuff there. And then it was not what I wanted to do. I had left school. I went to Chouinard just for a little less than 2 years. I didn't, and I was not a very cooperative student. I don't know, somehow I wasn't very interested in any of it, but I was interested in being around the people like this that were involved in the arts and as artists, and I really cherished the company that I was keeping at the time, and another job I had was working in a little coffee house on Sunset Boulevard.
You were the bouncer.
The Unicorn.
You were the bouncer.
No, I wasn't
Unicorn.
the bouncer.
Unicorn.
I stood at the door, which was different than being
He
a
was
bouncer.
also a performer. He was also a performer.
Great performer, too.
On
yeah.
occasion. I liked
That's
to
right.
play the guitar and sing folk songs. Well, all my buddies were interested in jazz and thought that folk music was just for wimps or something. Anyways,
You had a 12-string guitar.
I love 12-string guitars, but that was because I was deaf, and I got into 12-string guitars because I couldn't hear 6-string guitars. So
You had a history of being deaf. You had a history of being deaf.
yeah, I was deaf until I was 46 when my hearing loss was diagnosed, and so I got hearing aids. I was born with hereditary nerve degeneration in my ears, and there's a 40% loss across the spectrum in both ears. So I grew up not hearing a whole bunch of what was going on in the world, and including how to tune my 12-string guitar. But the club was a great job because a lot of girls would come in the place, and sometimes they had fantastic entertainers. And there was one time when Lenny Bruce played at the club several times during the time I was working there, and that was great fun. And I've always let my buddies in to come in. And there was one evening that he was really on, and there were people. He brought people out of the woodwork. People just came to hear him, and there'd be long lines around the block for people waiting outside to get in. And one night he came on to do a set at 8:30, and he was supposed to be off in a half hour, 40 minutes, and they turned over the house. But at 11:30, he was still on his first set. And so finally, the owner and the manager were flashing lights and trying to get him off because the crowd outside was getting really nasty. And they just went up, turned off the lights, and dragged him off the stage, where he went into a thing like he was going to the electric chair. And then the strangest thing happened. Nobody left. So I went upstairs to the office and told the owner of the place, a guy named Herbie Cohen, I said, "Nobody's left, Herbie." So he walks down. Lenny is sitting in a chair sort of like this. We went down. He looks, he says, "Did you bring your guitar?" I said, "Yeah, it's in the car." He says, "Do a set." Before the first song was over, the place was empty. Anyways, it was fun events like that kept things going. And actually, at a certain point, I just decided I had to figure out a way to make a living that didn't include working. So I went into the studio and didn't come out again. And,
Well, that framing shop gave you the idea to go into the boxed glass pieces,
well,
right?
yeah, I learned how to cut glass and found it a really interesting material to play with. And it was, the thing I liked about glass was that it reflected light, it transmitted light, and it absorbed light all at the same time. You could buy it any place. It was not very expensive. There weren't too many artists that I knew of, at least, that were using it as a viable material. And it had a shelf life of something like 3 million years. and so it seemed like a reasonable material to go after and use. And most of the layout of the sculptures that I did with them were really based on the corners of the rooms that was my studio. And that probably was the most influential thing in my trip I realized the number of right angles that were impinging on my peripheral vision were too many to count in just about any situation. And so I figured that was also a reasonable thing to use as a kickoff for the forms and so on. And just follow the gut, you know, so the glass became a material that I could make sculptures out of, and they played around with light. I didn't have any philosophical thing. It was just all very out front visual stuff and there was a sensuousness to making things, you know, I enjoyed that, even though I was very clumsy on all levels. But glass was a nice material to begin to work with because the surface was so perfect, you know, and you could just go and buy it anywhere, and it was.
So Ferris was sort of an established thing with Ed and Billy Al showing there. It was already sort of a hot, the hot contemporary gallery. And then you joined Ferris, Ed Ruscha joins Ferris, and then we've really got sort of quite a little scene. And
then I quit.
And what?
Then I quit.
Then you quit. Well, you quit over a very interesting little squabble.
There's always snit.
You didn't quit because they lowered the level for me, did you?
How did you guess? I actually recommended that you join so I could quit.
And which one of you blackballed Richard Diebenkorn? Who was that? Was that you? Yeah, that was it.
It was another era. He was working in.
Is that even a fact? I never heard that story.
Billy, I'll tell you.
Oh, okay.
He said, nope.
It isn't
You can have Ed Ruscha, but you can't have Richard Diebenkorn, or I leave.
Well, Diebenkorn was
I know.
too professional.
Well, it wasn't. And in all fairness, what was happening in the gallery at that time was a different way. It was going a different way. But I want to talk about 1963, and let's see. I think Andy Warhol's opening. These are the silver Elvis paintings. Ed was there, I think, Ed Ruscha. Who was at Andy Warhol's opening at Ferris in 1963?
I don't know, but I stretched them.
You stretched them.
Yeah, they were.
I thought they were just cut out.
Irwin and I did that job. I think
So-
we made 50 cents a piece.
For the record, this is where he ships the role of Elvis. Okay, so
And
for
Irwin
the
was
record,
outraged that they didn't have any marks on them. I said, doesn't make any difference. They're all crap.
so Andy Warhol sends a roll of silver silkscreen Elvises to Ferris, and they haven't been cut up because he was saving money on shipping. This is his second show at Ferris.
No, Irving was saving money on shipping.
Irving was saving money on shipping. And so you were one of the ones who cut it out.
Bob and I did.
You and Bob Irwin.
Yeah, and I can tell you, we didn't go, this is right. No, that's right. No, this is right. Done. Get this job over with.
So this is a big moment, 1963 Los Angeles, because we have Andy Warhol here for his second show. It's also a time when Marcel Duchamp has his first retrospective, and it's held at the Pasadena Art Museum, for those of you who don't know. And at that time, the Pasadena Art Museum was a Chinese-style mansion, which is still in Pasadena. It's now the Pacific Asia Museum.
Walter was the director.
Walter was director, curator, and chief cook.
Everything.
Everything. And so the entire international art world comes to Los Angeles for this opening. Ed Ruscha was there with his girlfriend from Oklahoma.
Who was that?
Not the entire art world.
This man
Some
on the
didn't come.
Some didn't come. But Larry and Billy, you went and shopped for some clothes. You went clothing. You went shopping.
Larry was certainly there. He did a Groucho Marx impersonation that is beautiful and cruel at the same time. It was so accurate that we knew this guy had a future.
Yeah.
He did Groucho Marx so explicitly. It was fun to watch.
Can you still do that? Can you still do that?
No. No, I don't do much of anything actually anymore.
That's four of us.
I don't even remember very much anymore.
That's four of us.
But you remember that Duchamp opening.
Oh, I do indeed. That was great fun. I also remembered when he visited my studio. He and Bill Copley and Richard Hamilton were given a list of artist studios to go and visit. And there was a knock on my front door about that loud. And all my friends came to the back door, and anybody who came to the front door was a building inspector.
Oh, no, a drunk or a stoned person asking for money.
Oh, yeah, right. I never had any money to give.
Yeah, well, none of us opened the front door.
If I had any money, I borrowed it from you.
And you can give it back anytime you want it.
So this knock about that loud continued for almost 20 minutes. Just
Why didn't you
sort of
just
like
answer
that
it?
with a little pause and then again. And I snuck out from the back around the side, keeping close to the wall, going around. Had a little peek hole on the side window that was all painted gray, and I saw these three guys with ties on out there. Well, they didn't really look like city people, but I opened the door, just a crack, and the short fella who introduced himself as William Copley, Bill Copley, and said, Walter Hopps told us to come and visit. Well, as soon as he said Chico's name, I opened the door. And they came in, and I showed them around what I was doing. But I was deaf. I didn't really hear the names of these people. And I heard Copley because he forcefully spoke up, introducing himself. And then as he introduced the other guys, his face was turned away, so I didn't read his lips. And So it wasn't until the three of them had been in the studio for maybe a half an hour or something looking at things, and the English fellow, who was Richard Hamilton, was explaining something that was about something I was doing with glass and mirrors and so on, and I got up real close to hear him, and he wasn't correct about what he was saying, and so I began to explain the procedures involved in this, and Mr. Copley says, "Marcel, didn't you do something like this before?" And then I realized who that guy was. And I sort of threw myself back against the wall, and I couldn't talk anymore. I was 22, and this guy, this legend, and I didn't even know it, was there in my studio. And they realized something had changed in the social qualities of the visit, and they thanked me and they left.
But they gave you $10,000.
No, $2,000.
Oh, $2,000.
And it came. I got a letter the day before Christmas of that year from the Copley Foundation saying you've been awarded the Copley, William and Noma Copley Foundation. And the day after Christmas came a check for $2,000. I'd never seen that kind of money ever.
That was a lot of money back then.
62, yes, it was 62 into 63, yeah.
Yeah, because I think your rent was $75 a month.
Less, 65.
It was 45.
45.
Thank you, Billy.
Venice.
Do I still owe you for my rent?
Kenny's and I shared the studio that was 75, so we paid $37.50 each.
And Ed couldn't even afford that. He had to live in Hollywood.
Well, I lived with 5 other people in a house near Barnsdall Park, and the rent was $60, so that made it $12 a month each, and it was not easy to scrape that money together. But that's when we were students, so after we got out, it was a little easier on us.
Still pretty low.
Low, yeah.
So did you get to meet Marcel Duchamp?
Yeah, I met him at the Pasadena Museum at his opening, and he had a cigar, and seemed like he was always dressed in suit and tie. He was unlike any typical artist.
Do you remember how he carried his cigar?
Kind of like European style, maybe. Well, what's that?
He had it in between.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I'd never seen anybody hold a cigar like that.
Yeah. That's continental.
What kind of cigar was it?
Huh?
What kind of cigar was it?
Roytan.
Did you give it to him?
No. I
Good
wouldn't
5-cent
smoke those cigars. I like cigars, but not those kind. I didn't believe a classy guy like that smokes one of those things.
So what do any of you most remember from this Duchamp moment, if anything?
You asking me?
All of you.
Not a damn thing.
Well, we'll have to settle on pretending to remember, maybe. Yeah, but no, that was a very lively spark in the history. Was that Duchamp show? Yeah, that was one of many, though.
Didn't he sit at a table with Babior, was that her name?
With who?
Playing cards or something like that.
Eve
That's
Babbitts?
with Eve Babbitts.
Eve Babbitts, that's
Eve
right.
Babbitt's story.
Yeah, playing chess, and she was bare-breasted.
She was nude. She was buck-ass naked. She wasn't.
Yeah, that's right. She was.
She'd get naked any time. Please don't take your clothes off.
You're talking about Ed Ruscha's good friend there.
Oh, no,
All
she was
of
an
our good friends.
exhibitionist. That's no doubt about that. Yeah.
Well, let's go back. We'll talk about exhibitionists. We can talk about the Sunset Strip a little bit. You know, let's see. I know that while you were at the Unicorn, Billy Al was dancing on the Sunset Strip in the clubs. He became he became very interested in
Dance hall girl.
Dance hall girl. That's right.
Great scene.
Didn't you tell me you danced with Tina Turner?
I sure did.
You talk. So that sort of that might even trump Don.
It's intimidating.
Tina Turner.
Yeah.
For you?
Yeah. You bet. I'm afraid she's going to step on me with one of those shoes.
Hey, watch out the shoes. The thing about LA at that time that always amazes me, I want all of you to kind of talk about this, is that I know that you went to New York, you went to Europe and New York, you all went to Europe, but you all decided to come back to Los Angeles to work and to live.
We're not stupid.
So that's right. So tell me, like, what was the draw of Los Angeles at that time? There's no museum, like 3 galleries, 4 galleries, 3 collectors. What was it?
The difference is that all of us wanted to make a contribution of some type or another. And you didn't need museums, galleries, or anything. You just need your buddies, because you didn't give a shit what anybody else said anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And
We thought we were great, too.
well, we were. I'll say everyone sitting here was fantastic. And
Here, here. Here, here.
and that's all the support you needed. You know, you didn't need anything else. And Barney's Beanery, he'd give you a beer every so often.
Mm-hmm. Ed I know you went to New York, and I love that story about meeting Warhol in New York.
Oh, yeah. You make it sound like I went to live there. No, I didn't never live there.
No, just to visit there in 1962
Oh, yeah.
or 63.
Yes, for the first time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it to be exactly like it was in old movies. And usually those movies were made in Hollywood with Hollywood sets. But New York City was exactly like that. I was stunned about how accurate all that was.
And if you recall, our hair froze.
The what?
Our hair froze.
Yeah.
Your hair froze?
Hair froze. Yeah, you know, we used to comb our hair with water and walk down the street and your head would freeze. That's a true story.
Isn't your first trip there where you meet with Andy Warhol?
Yes, I did.
When you and Joe hitchhike out there?
Joe Good and I hitchhiked a couple of times across country. And I remember one trip getting to Pittsburgh, and we could not get a ride out of Pittsburgh. And so we had to buy a ticket, which was $19, to go from Pittsburgh to New York City. And it was a great time. And yes, met Warhol, saw the museums there, and so it was a big deal. But I knew that I didn't have it in me to live in that city. I mean, I could see that to get across town with a 2x4 was impossible. So I thought, California was much more sparkly and chicks in cars, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I love the weather out here. So I never got intrigued enough to want to live in that New York City. This is a better area code. Although it was sort of like the Australia of the art world back then. I mean, not much happening. There were a fraction of things happening then that are actually happening today in this city. So it's almost impossible to remember how frugal it all was and how I mean, all my friends that just wanted to make art that would, you know, blow your hair back and have fun doing it, but the idea of having a vocation of it and making a living at it was non-existent. That's just sort of stuff that happened by accident. And there were, like you say, very few art collectors. I mean, a handful. And I always felt like the movie industry, why wouldn't they get our message while we were able to get their message, but they never really got our message. I mean, it's all changed today, and it seems like the movie industry is interested in general in the art world. But back then, no, everything was small scale, minuscule.
But one of my favorite stories is where you go to meet Warhol and you show him your first book. It's the very first book of photographs of the gas stations. Isn't that your first book?
Yes. Yeah? And so his reaction was, let's see if I can do him. Oh, I love it because there's no people here. There's no people in the pictures. Yeah. I didn't realize that until he said it.
I also like that show that he did at the gallery, and you walked in the gallery and you thought you were in the wrong place because these Camel soup cans were on a shelf going all around the perimeter of the room. And your immediate take was, I'm in the wrong place, because it didn't look like an art gallery at all.
It wasn't at that time.
Mm-hmm. What did it look like? A soup store?
No, it looked like it was where the Ferris Gallery existed, but it was entirely different the way it was all cleared out, and these soup cans were put up all the way around the room. And you thought, I'm in the wrong place. Your reaction was not to go in. My reaction was not to go in. I think, was it Irving that did that show?
Yeah,
Yep. Irving and Walter.
that was Irving.
Yeah.
The prices were outrageous.
That's
$25
right.
a piece.
Well, no,
Yes, they were.
50. You're thinking about net to the artist?
No, at that particular time, Irving wouldn't have paid that much back.
What's that? What did he
I
say?
didn't hear him.
Oh,
You said you're thinking about net to the artist.
Is Irving here?
Irving is here. They're $100 a piece.
There he is.
There he is. And he got them all back.
Stand up for a minute,
There's
can you?
Irving. There's Irving.
Take your punishment.
Well, at your own opening, it's $100 a piece. $100 a piece. But how
God,
much
we
did
got
the artist
wild
get?
information.
How much did Andy get?
Andy would get half of that.
Half of 100.
We kept the rest.
he came to the gallery one day, and I think Walter was in there, or Keenholz was there, cleaning a pistol off to the little office room. He was always sitting on his haunches, cleaning guns. And
Who was?
Keenholz.
Keenholz was sitting there cleaning guns.
yeah, and
He liked to hunt stuff.
Irving approached Walter about stepping up the gallery a little bit. And he said you'd have to get rid of about 30 people. It's true, it was a huge gallery, all kinds of people wandering in and out of there. And you cut it down to how many people?
About 50.
Yeah,
But you were still there.
and we're still there, we were still there.
But nobody else came in.
Well, there was one art collector named Betty Asher.
Yeah.
And apparently, for those of you, bought one of your first paintings, Ed. She bought Annie, I think.
Yes.
She never
did?
bought
She bought
anything of
Annie?
mine.
She was the first person to buy one of my paintings.
She bought one of your first pieces, you know, and she would have poker. Is that right?
What?
Did she had poker parties, right?
Oh, yeah. She was a good poker player.
John
She was a good-
Altoon died in her house.
Well, yes, and there was another artist who's not with us tonight who died a long time ago, and that would be John Altoon, who was a great force of energy and
was the
Oh, he was
Inspiration.
great, yeah.
inspiration to all these
Unbelievable.
people.
They
And-
found him on the fence going over the veterans' burial site over there, and he had two books, and he threw them over first. One was Rembrandt, and the other one was the Bible. And they scraped him off the fence and took him to the lockup. But he soon worked his way out of there. He was a great artist.
And Billy L. was
Yeah.
with, yes,
I was
yes.
going to say that, and Irving would remember this, that I had an exhibit, my first exhibit there at the gallery, and Irving and I had put all the pictures in place, and John comes in and says, Irving, you've got to close this show. Don't open this show tonight because this is not art.
Oh, dear.
And Irving said, okay, John. I was in the other room, not really picking up on what was said, but I got it right away. And I think I had only met Altoon once before, but anyway, he says, Irving, you got to close this show down. Don't have this opening tonight. This is not art. And Irving saying, sure, okay, we'll close it down. And then he came up and he kissed Irving on the cheek, and then he came over and kissed me on the cheek, and then he wanders down the street and sits on the lawn like a disturbed person. And I think Irving called his sister or a relative, and she came over and took John and went back to lockup, Camarillo. He had some mental problems, but then after that, he became one of my best friends, and he forgot the old incident.
But you didn't.
I couldn't forget it.
And Billy L. introduced him to his wife, to Babs.
Well,
I
yeah.
think. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Babs was the roommate of a girlfriend that I was with at the time, the fabulous Bobby Shaw.
Beach Blanket Bingo.
That's right.
The star. Billy's had many exciting girlfriends, but the Beach Blanket Bingo girlfriend was
She was
one
one.
that gets cited quite a lot.
I'm sure glad them days is over.
So yes, and I don't have that much more time, but I didn't want to just completely stay in Los Angeles, the very best city in the world. I did want to mention that, to ask all of you about now, the now. Thanks to Pacific Standard Time 2011 and the number of shows dedicated to LA art between 45 and 80, we have had like a lot of attention brought to Los Angeles and a lot of exhibitions for these people. So, in brief, Ed had a big show, a retrospective at Orange County, and he had a drawing retrospective at LACMA, and he had Moses at 90 at the Bill Turner Gallery, and he's still making art.
Every day.
Every day.
day.
Yep. That's right. And Larry has a big show opening this weekend at Pepperdine at the gallery there. So that's on Sunday.
Please come.
Not to mention having had a lot of success in London with White Cube and a show at Nîmes and international attention and so forth and so on. And Ed, who never takes a deep breath, was the subject of a really terrific show in San Francisco about On the Road that pulled together so much of his focus on the Western landscape in an interesting way, photography and prints and paintings, and I thought it was pretty good.
Well, but I'm currently unemployed. Well, self-employed. Yeah.
And he has a
Do you
show.
pay well?
And he has a show, Gagosian, in London, with a particularly age-oriented theme. I like the painting that says "really old." I could relate to that one. Sort of an upside-down triangle, but that's a pretty great show.
Thank you.
And Billy Al. Billy Al just had a big show in New York at Venus Gallery. There's a Venus LA and a Venus New York. He had a show at LA at Sam Freeman in Culver City, and then of sort of a survey of work. And then he also had a lot of early paintings that came out of we don't know where. All these early Billy Al Bengstons that haven't been seen by anybody but Billy for a very long time. That Adam Lindemann seemed to have.
It's because nobody bought them. It's a simple solution.
So he's had a big show in New York, and just to wrap up, how do you feel? I don't know where to start. I'll start with Billy. What kind of connection do you feel about your early work, even looking at it in that show, and what you do today?
I don't even think about it. It just doesn't cross my mind. I figured it's the best I could do then, and I'll try and do better now.
That's good. Do you think that way, Ed? How do you feel when you look at your work today? What do you think about when you're looking back?
I knew I was next. Yeah. No, I've been doing it maybe for so long that I forget why I'm doing it. And that puts me back in a puzzling, I'm self-puzzled. I still say that I don't really know what I'm doing, but I also employ myself to keep it going.
That's it.
You get a salary?
Is the salary with it? Well, no, that's doesn't come that way.
He works on spec.
He works on spec. That's right. Same with you. You work all. Larry works 3 weeks here, then works 3 weeks in Taos, 3 weeks here, 3 weeks in Taos, and then wherever the shows take him. So, when you make your work now, do you think about how it relates to your earlier work?
No, I don't think about the early work at all. And the work just seems to happen. And it's always been that way. It just sort of happens. And if you see something you sort of like, then you might push a certain technique or something and see how much mileage you can get out of that. Mileage by meaning how many examples, how much you can do, how much evidence can you create that is substantiates your idea of what it was, whatever it was. And my scene now is 3 weeks in Taos, New Mexico, where I have a studio that's equipped to do things that I can't do here or any other place. And so I spend 3 weeks there preparing materials, and I bring it out here and improvise with them. And every once in a while I get an idea to do something that can be fabricated by somebody else. And I'll invest some money in seeing how good that'll be. And, so it's a good way of doing plus I love to drive. So, I love to drive from there to Barstow. Once I get close to LA, it's another story.
And how about you, Ed? When you paint today, do you think about your earlier work? Do you think it's connected?
Yeah, it's always connected in a funny way. It's all about chance and circumstance. I never know what I'm doing or where I'm going. But I like getting up every morning and walking out to my studio and start pulling canvas out and putting it on the floor and writing this little thing over and drawing on it and turning it over, and that's the idea of what's on the other side. That's what I like to find, what's on the other side. Who's there? What's there? Maybe you.
What happens when you find out who's there?
You're here out of curiosity, right? Mm-hmm. Me too. Mm-hmm. It's all about curiosity.
All about curiosity is nice. It's a nice way to end. So let's thank all of our panelists, and thank you for coming.